Hello Tech Theater, this is your second video with regards to our concept design project coming up here for the next few weeks. I'm going to elaborate a little bit more on exactly what we're doing with this project and how it's going to go, but we're still going to start nice and slow, get us into the groove. You should be continuing to read your script and sort of finish that up, hopefully during this class period after you watch this video. That said, you have the rest of the week to do that and to answer a few questions that I'm going to include below here in this announcement/assignment for you to start thinking on the sort of conceptual set design that you may go with. Now, we're not going to come up with everything right now. We're not even going to come up with the total concept, but you are going to start to answer a few questions to say, okay, what does the set maybe kind of look like, or what's required, or where's this place taking place, or not this place, this play taking place. But I want to start off, I want to rewind just a little bit to give you a little more information on what this project is. So what is the goal sort of this project? By the end of it, the goal is to have a sort of unified vision of the show that you picked, of those three, whether that's A Doll's House, Almost Maine, or Twelfth Night. These all sort of lend themselves and can be used to be creative in our design process. But at the end of this sequence, we're going to do 5 different little sections in this process, and I'll elaborate on those in just one moment. But at the end of that, you're going to be able to put those together and say, this is how I see this show for me. Okay? We can put up shows how they've been done a million times over and over and over and over and over again, and sure, they'll be, or I guess they could be great, they could be terrible, but they'll be received well enough by an audience. You know, if you do exactly the same way they did on Broadway, the audience will probably think it's great still. But what we want to do now is give our own twist on these shows, on a show that has been done a lot of times, but give our own signature aesthetic to it. Now, the way we're going to do that is by going through this 5-step process, sort of. And I guess sort of 6-step, because I'm going to have you guys do this first sort of question brainstorming thing this week. But we're not, when we design this show, we're not going to go into every detail. We're not going to say the lights have to be exactly like this and every costume for each character is going to be like this. That's not what we're doing. We're not even saying like the set is going to look like this. We're not doing a design of each of these, because this is from the director's perspective and point of view, not from the individual designer point of view. This is what the director is going to do to share with the designers so that they can go off and help create this vision in their own expertise and unique space. So we're not going to dive into like very specifics on every little thing, but you will be able to describe the general aesthetic, the way it's going to look, the feel of it, sort of maybe a couple ideas here or there of what the lights might be able to do or what the costumes might be able to do. And I will give you examples, both verbally and physically, of this in each section. We will use my own concept design of Into the Woods that I did with a company called Stage Struck a couple years ago, and I will use that to sort of help bridge this gap and give some visual and oral examples of how this works. I may also dip into some of my work on 12th Night, although I don't want to do that too much in case some of you have picked that, and I don't want you to have to go a different way than I did just because I shared that with you. So as we go through each step, like I said, I'll give examples, I'll talk you through them, I'll talk through it, but I will also include some documents that allow you to sort of see the work as well, and what is expected. We're going to go through 5 different steps to create our final vision, okay, before putting it all together. And you'll have sort of a portfolio of this creation. So step number 1 is creating a central idea. Some people call this theme as well. The term central idea comes from a guy named Robert McKee, and it's the main idea that you are trying to tell with this play. And we'll talk about how we create that down the road after we do this setting sort of exercise. Step number 2 is our counter idea. Again, I'm going to elaborate on all these further later on. But the counter idea is the idea that fights against that main theme or central idea throughout the show. One's winning, and then the other's winning, and then the other's winning, and the other's winning, and it goes back and forth until at the climax, one of those ideas wins. and we're going to talk about how we do all that. So don't stress. The third step is going to be our imagery analysis, and I talked about this a little bit in the previous video. We're going to take those images and you're going to show in the script where those images exist, and then you're going to select an image to represent that. So if it was love, as love is the repetitive imagery, you might select, I don't know, a mosaic heart image or something. You're going to find these images online. You're not going to create these yourself. But you'll do that for several images throughout the show that you read. Step 4 is going to be metaphor. Now, we'll dig into what metaphor means. Many of you probably already know what a metaphor is. You know what a simile is and a metaphor is. But we'll talk about that. And when we talk about metaphor, what we are going to talk about is a metaphor for the entire show. Not a metaphor for one moment or for a character or this sort of thing, but a singular metaphor that represents the entire show to you. Again, I'll give you examples of how this works when we get to it, so don't put the horse in front of the cart, or cart in front of the horse. Cart in front of the horse, that's the phrase. We'll get to it, I'll explain it more. And step 5, before you put it all together, is going to be central image. Now this is going to be a picture or an image that you find or create that is going to be given to every single designer on your team that's going to represent the show as a whole as well. So you have a metaphor and you also have a picture that you've put together that represent this show. And this image, this central image, is going to be something that they all have to use to design the show. So all lights, costumes, sets, props, everything has to relate to this image. That has to create, maintain the aesthetic or mood of the image. It can't use anything outside of this color palette that this image has. And again, I will give you examples of what this looks like, both in theory and in practice. So in my own theoretical work, but also in, as I mentioned, Into the Woods, how we did it over there, which was a super, super cool concept. Just to give you a brief preview of that before I kind of wrap up about the setting. We set it in a 1960s Cold War, bunker, almost post-apocalyptic world. For those of you who don't know, Into the Woods is like a fairy tale world. Usually it's storybooks and this sort of thing. We set it in this sort of post-apocalyptic 1960s Cold War era. And we sort of did story within a story and made it like a D&D campaign kind of feel as well. It was really cool. We'll talk more about it when we get to each of those next little segments that I just mentioned, those 5. So today, you should finish reading your play, whichever you selected. And then there's some questions attached here that you should look at, okay? You should put some thought into. This is going to be due at the end of next class. Your answers for your play for these questions. These are about the setting. They're to start your brain working on sort of where this world is, where this play takes place. So why is setting important? Well, it's the world. It creates the world and the expectations for the audience. It's the world in which your characters live and the one that the audience experiences. It's the first thing they see when they come in, when those curtains open, or if the curtains are already open, it's the first thing they see when they come in. You already saw in our Theater Wing video that we watched with Ricardo Hernandez that the setting, the location, the aesthetic of what the audience sees really sets the tone and the mood for the play. And so it sets that world. It puts us in that world. We can use, it can be really realistic. It could be really realistic. We looked at this during the set design stuff. There were some really realistic sets. There are some really abstract sets that weren't hyper-realistic. Either way is okay. For our concept design, I'm going to encourage you guys as we move through this process to move away from realism as much as possible. It's not that you can't have it, but that it is inspired by the metaphors that you choose and the imagery that you see, that you can create a really fantastic, ideal concept. And I'll talk through how to do that, of course. As I mentioned, this can be influenced by the imagery and the metaphor that we create later on. But I do want you to take a look at those questions to start that process. There is not right and wrong answer to these questions. What's important is that you think through them and you give them the requisite attention that they deserve, okay? Because this is going to be the start of this process. I'm really excited about this. This is my most fun. This is the most fun I have, is doing this sort of concept design stuff. I love doing it as a director. I love teaching it. So I hope you guys find it as inspiring and fun and creative as I do. And we will talk through it more as we go on. All right, so take a look, finish reading your play, take a look at the questions below, and get those answered and turned in. I'll create an assignment on Canvas for that to get in as well. And that'll be due next class period, at the end of the class period. So have a great day, guys.